Hey, welcome to the Latoya Carr Show. Where is my handbook? The name was inspired because life comes at such a fast pace and it does not come with a handbook. Therefore, this podcast will talk about the many different facets of everyday living, and that can include parenting, business, family, friendships, relationships, basically everything that you will sit at your kitchen table and talk about. I started the podcast on anchor.fm. For those of you that are listening who may be wanting to start your own podcast, go to anchor.fm to start your own podcast. It is free and very easy to navigate. Again, welcome to the Latoya Carr Show. Where is my handbook? Hey, y'all. Tonight we're going to talk about healthy relationships and what it means to me. I have 4 things that I believe make up a healthy relationship. Okay? Y'all ready for those 4 things? So, first thing we have boundaries. Second thing, commonalities. Third thing, respect. And fourth thing, openness. So, I believe that all relationships, in order to be healthy, need boundaries. What does boundaries mean? Boundaries mean that, yeah, we're cool. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, I like you. But we all have that one or maybe 5 things that we just might not like. That may just get under our skin. So I believe that all relationships have to have boundaries. So often we are in these relationships, and let me stick a pin in this right quick. So when I say healthy relationship, it doesn't mean that it has to be a significant other. I'm talking about all relationships. I'm talking about with your kids. I'm talking about with your family. I'm talking about and with your significant other, as well as even work relationships. All relationships need boundaries. And then the boundaries aren't just, what do we call it? It's just not, expectations or unspoken expectations. There's more of these boundaries have to be established. Sometimes they're established involuntarily, and sometimes they're established voluntarily. I think that when it comes to establishing boundaries involuntary, sometimes it happens because, you can be going about your day, or you guys are out, or what have you, and something happens that neither person knows is a trigger. But once you realize that it is a trigger, I believe that, that's when you have to establish your boundaries. And I think that's what I would call or be an example of an involuntary boundary. So if, for instance, somebody that has been verbally abused, if you have a friend that plays a lot and they may say something like, "Oh, you stupid." So to most of us, we're going to say, we're going to know that is jokingly, or we're going to know that, that means that we're funny. But to someone that has been verbally abused, that can be a no-go. That word stupid can be a no-no, like, something that they have to establish a boundary for, because it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them offended. So that's what I would consider involuntary boundaries. I think when it comes to voluntary boundaries, you can, if you're in a group and you're having a conversation and, or just with that friend, that person, your kid, significant other, whatever. um you guys can just be having random conversation, and you're just talking about your likes and your dislikes. I think that would qualify as voluntary boundaries, because if they're listening to you, then you're saying what your dislikes are. Those are boundaries. Because if I'm telling you in certain conversations what I don't like, if I'm telling you what I won't go for, and you deliberately do it, you're not respecting me. Respect is one of the ones later, one of the four ones that I pointed out. So we'll get more into that later. But if I'm telling you my likes and my dislikes, and you hear my dislikes, but you still, you deliberately still do something that I dislike, that's not good. That's not a healthy relationship. And so I volunteered you that information. So that would be, as I pointed out, voluntarily saying what your boundaries are. When it comes to any kind of relationship, saying no can be hard. Because in all relationships, we want to make the other person happy, right? Even your kids, like you may be the parent, but ultimately we still want to make our kids happy. And so even when you are putting your feet down, as we call it, sometimes it's still hard to say no. Sometimes it's, you have to have those hard conversations. And so I learned this year that no is a complete sentence. And so I think that was one of the most simplest lessons that I've learned. No is a complete sentence. So you do not have to explain yourself. I also learned with that, once you say no, like you don't want to do something, no, you're not going to do something, and you start trying to explain, sometimes it becomes a lie, right? Because we don't want to make the other person feel bad about it. And so we want to justify why we're saying no. The problem with justification is it can become a burden. It can be burdensome, because you're sitting here and you don't want to do it, but then you feel obligated because it's like, well, you don't want to let somebody down. But in the end, who are you really letting down? If you don't want to do something and you decide to do it anyway, who are you really letting down? You or the other person? And so, that again, it was a great lesson for me. And so, some people will look at me and be like, what? You look like you can easily say that. No, because whereas I may have a certain persona about me, I care about my friends, I care about my family, so I always want to be able to be there. But the reality of it is, when you have relationships, or when you're trying to have healthy relationships, you can't always be there. You can't. And because if you always are showing up for everything, something is getting neglected, right? And so then you become irritable. You mad at everybody and everything else because you're neglecting yourself ultimately. So, saying no isn't always a bad thing, because you can show up for people in other ways. Sometimes, with having healthy relationships, it's being creative. And yeah, while you want to show up, you have to always show up for yourself first, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so that's why it's very important to have healthy relationships, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you need people. I don't know about you guys, but when I was coming up, and still, of course, my family is very big, and I come from a close-knit family. And so growing up, I had 3 very close girlfriends, right? That was my circle, 4 deep. Um, you know, but outside of that, I had all my 50 gazillion cousins. And truth be told, if I didn't have any friends in high school coming up, like, I would have been good, because I had cousins around my age, and we were all close. We grew up together. My mom and them, aunties, like sisters, and so, like, that's the kind of family that I came from. And so growing up, because you saw family and that's what you were used to, when I went to the military at 17 years old, I learned really quick that family ain't always blood. I learned very quick that you need people. So that goes back to what I just said about, needing people. Like, this is why you need healthy relationship, because you need people. You cannot make it in this world alone. So it's very important that while you're not alone, that you have healthy relationships around you. Because, there are some people that feel like they can't be by themselves, but the people that are around them may not necessarily be the best people to be around. It may not be healthy for them. So boundaries, you have to set boundaries. And everybody's boundaries aren't going to be the same. Again, I pointed out the example about verbal abuse. We have many things that we go through as humans. And, from childhood up, that can be with us forever, for a very long time. And some things we don't even know exist, right? Earlier, I mentioned the word trigger. So when I say it's some things that we don't know exist, let's talk about childhood. So if something happened in your childhood and you suppress that memory, you suppress the memory, you probably never got any couch time for it, never went to counseling, therapy, anything, never talked about it in your household. But in your adulthood, something similar happens. It doesn't have to be that thing, but it reminds you of that thing. And so that's a trigger. So now you're triggered. And now you're trying to figure out why you're so triggered. Right? Because it was something that happened to you that was traumatic. The unhealthy part of it is it was never talked about. That's very unhealthy. The feelings were suppressed. There was no outlet. And so this is why, when you'll hear people talk about self-care and all of that other stuff, like, this is why it's important to focus on having healthy relationships, because the healthy relationships help you deal with certain things. The healthy relationships help you be you, because I talked about suppressing things. When you are suppressing feelings, sometimes that could mean that you're not being yourself, or you're not living up to your full potential. And that's also not healthy, right? So within boundaries, there are a lot of things to unpack within boundaries, because it sets the tone for your healthy relationships. It sets the tone for your healthy life, your mindset, your thinking. It's very important to set boundaries. And the funny thing is, sometimes we don't even know what our boundaries are. I keep having to go back to that for some reason. Sometimes we don't know. But we have to, so with not knowing, we have to give the other person or people a fair shot at not knowing. Because if we don't know boundaries, then they won't know it for us. The other person or persons can't pick our boundaries. We have to pick them. We have to be okay with them. We have to know what it looks like for us. And then the people around you can know how to treat you. Because that's the other thing. I always tell my son, I tell people all the time, you teach people how to treat you. People aren't just out here willy-nilly treating you any kind of way just because. Now, caveat to that. Some people are mean. Some people do have ways about themselves. I mean, actually, we all have ways about ourselves. But some people are mean deliberately. And so they will do things, spiteful things or mean things or what have you. But when I say you teach people how to treat you, if they do something to you and you allow that to keep going, then that means that you are allowing the behavior. So that means that you are allowing them to treat you how you don't want to be treated. So again, you teach people how to treat you, and that can be good or bad. So make sure that you have clear boundaries. Make sure that with your boundaries, they're not only clear for you, they have to be clear for the other person as well. Like, it has to make sense for both people in order for it to work. The second thing for healthy relationships is commonalities. So I believe that people are allowed to be different. I believe that people are people can click and have differences. However, when it comes to healthy relationships, if somebody is like totally out of your league, somebody is totally like, they don't have the same morals. It's not even about background, because we all come from different backgrounds and we all can pretty much change and mold our life to where we want it to be. When you know better, you do better. So commonality is not to say that you have to be alike in every way. But I believe that healthy relationships, you do have to have, like I pointed out, you have to have like at least the same morals. Like, when your morals aren't the same, it's not going to work. I cannot get with someone who does not believe in God. That has to be a big, common thing in a relationship. I cannot be around here dating somebody. You can be sexy, beer gang, sexy chocolate all day. But how is it going to work? How is it going to be a healthy relationship if we don't believe the same things? So that is what I mean when I say commonalities. what are you doing here? You know, I ask that question all the time. Like, why are you here? Who sent you? Who sent you? It's the same as being, having kids. If your idea of raising a child is, this, or you will clean up, like you will do these chores on these days, this is what will be done. And that child is like, absolutely not. I am not doing that. I do not believe in that. I am not. That relationship is not going to be healthy. Let's just be real clear. Especially in a Black household. That relationship is not going to be healthy. Because I guarantee you, when that mama comes home and she done left that laundry list of stuff to do and it's not done every time, because we all have when you have teenagers like me, they are going to not do some stuff, right, that you told them to do. But I'm talking about the kids that's straight up like, no, I don't believe in this. You want to go to church? No, I don't believe in God. That relationship isn't going to be healthy. It's going to be a strain. It's going to be a real strain. So you want to find commonalities in people. Like, you want to find a common goal, because that's going to strengthen the relationship. First of all, it's going to be, it's going to be the foundation of the relationship, but it's also in time, as you guys continue to find things that you have in common, or you continue to grow, is going to strengthen a relationship. Because I spoke about my girlfriends from high school, and even though like we're all evolving, we're all growing, we still have a couple of common things. Like, we like to have a good time. We like to have fun. We love our kids. Like, there are things that, and we haven't lived in the same state in almost 20 years together, but we still have a strong enough foundation where we still have, strong enough common things that we see eye to eye on, that even without living in the same state for 20 plus years, we can still be friends. We can still grow together. So that's the importance of making sure that you're with people who have have things in common with you. Because at the end of the day, even if they're not going down your path, that when someone has your best interest in heart, or has your best interest at heart, or you have a solid foundation, you have enough common goals together, they're going to push you on your path. They're going to congratulate you. They're going to motivate you. And that's what you need, in healthy relationships. So we've talked about two out of the four so far. Y'all ready for the last two? All right. So what about respect? Man. Respect goes a long way. Oh my goodness, respect goes a long way. And I say that because I remember being in the military, and I had this supervisor, and I was just like at the point, I gotta laugh because she was like, we have to talk. I said, no, we don't. We don't have to talk. Like, at the end of the day, if it's not about the job, I don't have to say anything to you. As a person, we're not there. Now, I respect your rank, but we're not there. And so, it's funny, like, looking back on that, what that meant for me at that time was, and I wouldn't even say that we had a healthy relationship, but I had enough respect for her rank that I wouldn't disrespect her. I had enough respect for her rank that I still made sure that, I didn't make her look bad. So in that situation, it's so funny to me. Although it was a negative situation, the respect still made it doable. Now, for tonight's topic, we're talking about healthy relationships. That relationship was a negative relationship, but it just goes to show like how much respect means. I mean, this lady was she was trying to do some of everything, between me and my career. But again, the respect that I had for the rank, because, I was in the military. She was a different kind of person, but my respect for the rank, for the uniform, meant something greater. And so, even in a negative situation, respect plays a big factor. So just think about it. That was a negative situation, and it still ended up being the good outweighed the bad. But for the healthy relationship, when we talk about respect, it's similar to it's the same thing. So in order to, make sure that your relationship is healthy, make sure that your relationship stays on a positive note, you have to have respect for one another. There's nothing that's going to be positive for your relationship if you lack respect. In any capacity. If you lack respect, there's not going to be a positive outcome for that. Because when you start losing respect for someone, something, your attitude goes downhill. And most of the times when your attitude goes downhill, so does your performance. So if you are in a relationship and you don't respect that person as a man or a woman, everything about that is going to show. I don't respect you as a man, so I'm not going to look at you as a head of household. I don't respect you as a woman, so I might be around here sleeping with other women. Like it'll be a ripple effect. So respect goes a long way. With me, people, will start out with respect with me. But how that respect continues, it will be through integrity. It will be through honesty. A lot of times for me, I've noticed when I lost respect for someone, it was something that they've done morally. in terms of morals that I didn't agree with, because when you when it comes to morals and honesty and all of that stuff, like, it's hard to get that back when someone loses it. It's hard. It's very hard. And so, make sure, I can't harp on this enough, make sure that respect is there. Because if it's not, you're going to be forcing a relationship. You will be forcing a relationship. And that in itself is stressful. Very stressful. And then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth the force? For me, it's not. Not because, you don't want to continue relationships, but because you should love yourself more. You should love yourself more. I think that's about all on respect. We can go to the last one that I want to talk about tonight with you, is openness. Being open. Being open is a very big deal when it comes to healthy relationships. It's a very big deal. And it's a very big deal because you never know what you're going to get with another human. Let me tell you something. I'm a mama of a teenager. I raise him, and sometimes I'll be like, who raising you? So again, you never know what you're going to get with another human being. So you have to be open and willing to communicate. So being open doesn't mean that you're a pushover. Being open doesn't mean that you're going to agree with everything that the other person has done or said. Being open just means that, you know what, I value this relationship enough to see where you're coming from. That's it. It don't mean that, something happened and you ain't going to want to kill them in the next 10 seconds. No, that's not what that means at all. It means, like I just said, like, I love you enough. I think of you enough. I like you enough to even try to consider your rationale. Now, in the meantime, I don't like that you did it. I don't like that you said it. But I'm willing to see and willing to see how we can move forward. Because ultimately, being open about stuff is about, you're having an open mind and you're willing to see what you can do to move forward, to get over the hump. And being open isn't always like because it's something bad. It can be something neutral, but it can be something that you're just not used to. And so you have to come to grips with whatever it is the other person is going through, whatever it is the other person has said, whatever it is the other person has done, if you value the relationship. If you value the relationship. So openness, and then, I mentioned communication as well. Like, man, I talked earlier about having boundaries and not just not having unspoken boundaries. And so this goes with that in terms of communication. The communication lines has to be open for a relationship to be healthy. If the communication lines aren't open, it's not going to work. It's not going to be a healthy relationship or a good outcome. So you have to make it up in your mind, how the communication should work, because we all come from different backgrounds. We all, have different personalities, different attitudes. And so you have to, figure out what communication tools work for you. And then in the meantime, also be open and honest about how how the other person will receive it or how they will be affected by it. And then the communication and the open, like, it goes both ways. It goes both ways. So with the boundaries, the commonalities, the respect, the openness to communicate, all of these things go both ways. Because we're talking about healthy relationships, you can't be in a relationship with yourself. So that means the other people or person have to understand clearly what your expectations are, what your boundaries are, what's your common goals. What would they do or say to make you feel disrespected? And how, important is communication to you? How important is it? So, like, with this podcast, like with tonight's episode, I should say, I really felt the need to talk about relationships, because we can't talk about winning. We can't be hyped for 2020 if our relationships aren't intact. Everybody can't go where you're going, but when the relationship means something to you, it should be important to make sure that it's intact. It should be very important. So, I hope that you guys enjoy tonight's episode. I hope that you guys have healthy relationships. And if you don't have healthy relationships, I hope that at least you can listen to the 4 things that I've mentioned to get you on your path to having healthy relationships. Okay? And I'm going to just leave you with this. You cannot live in this world alone. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have anybody to share it with, what good is it to you? Because you can't take it when you're gone. All right, y'all. Be easy.